Hello, my name's Mark Dorey and welcome again to another exciting encounter in Jesus, where I invite you to put aside what you know or what you think you know about Jesus and look at him afresh as we go through Mark's Gospel. And last time we looked at a part in Mark's Gospel chapter 3, and we looked at Jesus as the undercover Son of God. So if you've missed that one, there's always a link in the description below. But as always, if you are enjoying this series, why not like, subscribe and click the bell, and you'll never miss another episode. Well, today we're going to be looking at Jesus picking his A-team, picking an unlikely 12, an A-team unlike any other. And we're going to be looking at Mark chapter 3 verses 13 to 19. I'm going to be using the New Living Translation here, which is going to pop up on the screen, but you can follow along in whatever translation you wish. So we're going to read from Mark chapter 3 verses 13 to 19. Afterward, Jesus went up on a mountain and called out the ones he wanted to go with him, and they came to him. Then he appointed the 12 of them and called them his apostles. They were to accompany him, and he would send them out to preach, giving them authority to cast out demons. And these are the 12 he chose: Simon, who he named Peter; James and John, the sons of Zebedee, but Jesus nicknamed them sons of thunder; Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, Judas Iscariot, who later betrayed him. So there you go. We got Jesus picking his A-team. And it's good to be sort of surrounded by, great people who can support you, family, friends, particularly when you've got something big to do. And Jesus is on the start of his mission. And this is a mission that's going to spread throughout the world, and it's going to have eternal consequences. So basically, he needs his A-team. He needs some people with good qualifications, good education, intelligent people with great connections. And yet, here, we find that Jesus is picking, basically, as you go through the Gospels, you'll find out they're a bunch of ragamuffins. They're just nobody people. They're the ones that most people looked over. Fishermen, tax collectors, zealots, and all of these people, and all the rabbis, all the teachers of the day who wanted their own following, they looked over these people. And yet Jesus picks these people. And sometimes you just gotta wonder why. Now, I'm a children's author, and I often say when I'm talking to children, never judge a book by its cover, because you might, if you see a terrible cover, you might miss a great story inside. And the opposite is true. Sometimes you see this brilliant cover with amazing illustrations or whatever, but when you read the story, it's a little bit disappointing. And the thing is, God is used to picking the unexpected people. As I said last time, Jesus, the Messiah, wasn't expected to come as this carpenter from Galilee, but God is in the business of doing the unexpected. And in the Old Testament, when Israel needed a new king and God had rejected Saul, he tells the great prophet Samuel, he says, go out to the house of Jesse. Jesse was, basically a no one really, and get all his sons to line up in front of you, and I'll tell you which one to pick as the next king. So Samuel goes up to Jesse's house and he says, get out all your sons, because one of them's going to be the great king. And so he goes to the first one, I think it's Eliab or something. He goes up there and he's tall and he's strong and he's all this. And Samuel's thinking, surely this is the one God anoints as king. And God goes, no, it's not that one. And he goes down the line from the oldest to the youngest. And he gets to the end of the 7, and God's going, well, I don't want any of those. So Samuel's going, well, what's happening here? And he says to Jesse, he says, hey Jesse, have you got any more sons? And he goes, oh yeah, there's one up on the hillside, and he's looking after sheep. No, only the youngest and the least thought of son would be looking after sheep. So Samuel says, well look, I'm not leaving here until you go and get him. So they send for this youngest son, and he's the smallest of the lot. And God says to Samuel, anoint him as king over Israel. Samuel's going, what are you on about? But God goes, look, man looks at the outside, but God looks at the heart. Do not judge him by his appearance. So Samuel takes the oil, and much to everyone's surprise, he's anointed as the future king of Israel. So go on a few years, and all of a sudden the Philistines are challenging Israel to a one-off fight, and they've got their champion Goliath, who's this 9-foot giant, and he comes down every day for 40 days, and he challenges the whole of Israel who are on the other side, and he's going, you fight me, winner takes all. Whoever wins, winner takes all. And Israel are quaking in their boots. And this young boy, this youngest son of Jesse, he's told by his father to go and take some sandwiches to his brothers who are on the front line quaking in their boots. So he goes, he takes some sandwiches, and he sees this Goliath issuing this challenge and calling them all chickens. And this boy says, oh, I'm not having that. He says, I'll go and fight him. And everyone's laughing and going, what do you mean you're going to go and fight him? You're just a young boy. And they take him to King Saul, who's going to be replaced. And he says, look, King Saul, he said, I've killed bears, I've killed lions and tigers with my slingshot, and I'm going to take this Goliath out. And sure enough, with just his slingshot, this youngest son goes and kills Goliath with a single shot, because he's moving in the power of God. He is the one that God has appointed. And the thing is, despite external experiences of being the least and the smallest and everything else and just a young boy, he kills this 9-foot giant. And this 9-foot giant is laughing before he dies with a stone in his head. But it's because he's moving in the power of God. And of course, you know that this young boy is of course David, who becomes their new king, and he becomes King David, who is Israel's greatest king. So as always, don't judge a book by its cover, because you know, you look at David, no one would have picked David, but God knew his heart. And the thing is, when Jesus is picking these people, these nationalists, these zealots, these tax collectors and fishermen and tradesmen, people might look at them from the outside, and they're constantly, as I said, they're constantly jockeying for position to see who's going to be the greatest disciple. But Jesus knows their potential. He looks into their heart, just as God looked into the hearts of those young men lining up before Samuel. He looks into their hearts and he sees their potential. He sees that these 12 nobodies are going to be amazing, because 2,000 years later, without Christianity, you wouldn't have our schools, our education system, our laws, or our universities. And it's all founded on these 12 nobodies. So Jesus did know what he was doing. And he always knows what he's doing. God knows what he's doing. All he wants is a willing heart. All he wants is a willing heart. He doesn't want qualifications. It doesn't matter who you are or what you've done. He just wants a willing heart. Jesus accepts everyone. But here's the thing. Do you have a willing heart? You know, Jesus accepted me 27 years ago, and I was like, oh, I was in the pits of despair. And I'd done so many wrong things. I got divorced and everything else. I'd failed in so many things. And I felt such a failure. And yet Jesus chose me to be his disciple. And he chooses anyone who is willing to follow him to be his disciple, because he doesn't look at my failures, because they're too many. He looks at my heart and he sees the potential. He saw this Encounter in Jesus video series and the books before I did, years before, decades before I did, because he sees the potential. And that's the thing. God often sees the potential in your heart that you might not see. You know, as I look back, I just think, of all the things I've done for Jesus, going to Romania on a mission for him, you know, in the orphanages, and all the things I've done, leading a small church up on the Graig in Pontypridd, I didn't feel qualified. But the thing is, Jesus makes you qualified, because all he says, and we've covered this before, when he called Matthew, he just says, follow me. Follow me, I'll do the rest. Just follow me. He's the leader. I don't have to do anything. He's the leader. But the big question is, do you have a willing heart? And some more questions as a point of reflection. How do you assess people when meeting them for the first time? If Jesus looked into your heart today, what potential might he see in you? And what if Jesus picked you as his disciple? Would you feel qualified to accept? So there's some big questions there. Some big questions. But it's a heart thing. Following someone, following Jesus is a heart thing. And Jesus, as the Son of God, can see right into your heart. He's alive today. And he doesn't pick those who feel they are qualified. He picks those whose hearts are ready to follow him. And as always, you can see all this, you can read all this, and personal reflections and all of these questions, and personal monologues of all these different things that happen in Mark's Gospel in our Encounter in Jesus book, which is available for pre-order on our website, thompsoncat.com. So there you go. Are you qualified? Don't really need to be. All you need is a willing heart. So on that note, I'll see you next time.